Hey, what's up? This is Mark Lopes from Metal Church of Ross the Boss Band. Let us pray. And you're listening to Aftershocks TV. And don't forget to keep it fucking metal. Yeah.
All right, you're watching Aftershocks TV right here on the CMS Network, and we'd like to welcome our guest today from the legendary New York classic metal vets, the Rods. We got drummer Mr. Carl Canedy with us here on Aftershocks. What's happening, Carl? Thanks
Hey
for coming on,
guys,
man.
yeah,
Hey,
thanks for having me. I'm here. I'm clean. I've got a little cologne on. I'm ready to go.
Oh, wow.
I like
Cologne,
it.
all right. Yeah, definitely, man. Well, today is the day, Carl. The new album, Rattle the Cage. Let's bring this up right here. It's out now on Massacre Records. It's the first full length for you guys since 2019's Brotherhood of Metal, and the third release since you guys reunited about 15 years ago. 15 years ago. And so before we just get into talking about the new album, Carl, I mean, when you think back, to the early part of the band's career at the dawn of the 70s and then into the mid 80s, when you guys had first, disbanded, did you or could you have ever imagined you'd be sitting here talking about a new full-length album coming out 45 years later? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I used to think that 30 was old. Excuse me. And I used to think I'd be dead by 35. I didn't, my long range plans were not that long range. So, yeah, so I know I had no idea we would be here talking all these years later, nor would I be thinking that, Rattle the Cage would be out today and that we're already halfway through the next album.
Oh, wow.
So, who would have
Oh,
thought that?
shoot.
Wow, so you got another one in the can coming up. Okay.
Absolutely.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, Rattle the Cage, Carl, to me, essentially, when I listen to it, to me, it picks up really where you guys, left off with the last release, Brotherhood of Metal. You've obviously got a video that came out last month for Play It Loud that everyone could check out that's out there now.
And today was a new Now and Forever is the new single.
Yep.
Okay, so the new single out there.
Today's a new video release. One of my
very cool.
favorites too.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, there's some great tunes on here. I love Can't Slow Down, Hell or High Water too, great tracks as well. But I mean, so a lot of these tracks, I did read, I think that Play It Loud, for example, was a song that David had sort of in his catalog. Are a lot of these tracks that you guys have on this record, are these more fresh, newer ideas and concepts that you've written? Or a lot of these tracks, they are. Okay, so they're not from
They're all new.
From the past.
No, they're all new. When David says in his catalog, it's his I believe what he means is it's been his that's just been his motto. I remember asking David to write a song, and I'll have to ask him about this, to write a song that has call and response within the song. So you don't have to break it down and people sing. It would be in the song, and that's Play It Loud. But I'll have to ask him about that.
Okay, very cool, man.
And you have to forgive my voice. I'm just getting over a nasty flu.
Oh, not good.
My voice comes and goes, but hopefully I'll be good enough here. The fresh bathing and the cologne will carry me through.
A colonial work magic, man.
I love
Awesome.
it. I love it.
Well, I mean, and so Carl, obviously there's been a major change to the band's lineup. Gary no longer is with you guys, and he's obviously, been there since, for a year, obviously since back in 1980 or if not longer. You got Freddie now in tow. So I think this has have to be, especially for you, a big change, being that he's the other half, obviously, of the rhythm section. And obviously you guys have been playing, for decades with each other. So, I mean, how has that change now been for both you and David in terms of not just, writing, recording, and playing live, but really just from not having that same person around in the room that always been there since you guys started to release music, 40 plus years ago?
Well, it's totally different. Our tour manager says, somebody said, well, what's the difference of having Freddie in the band and with the, overall in the band? And excuse me, she said, you know how when you have two old cats in the house and then you introduce a kitten, like totally the old cats come to life. And I say it pissed me off when I heard it, but actually then I thought for a minute, I thought, how can I be pissed? It's hysterical. But anyway, it's been across the board. Freddie is, first of all, it's different from playing with Gary, but Gary and I Gary was not a team player when it came to building parts. Gary was, he was a guy who he didn't want to spend time working out parts. He was actually toward the end, I had to really push him to do Brotherhood of Metal. He had a bitter attitude toward the business, and so it was. He wasn't really in the game, and it wasn't a surprise that he retired, at least from the rods. However, with Freddie, he and I work parts out. I call us the Thunder Twins, but we work parts out. The rhythm section, I mean, it's never been better. When we go on stage, for me, I know we're going to be solid. Freddie brings a whole different bass tone from Gary. So Gary was a very heavy mid-range. Freddie is more Geezer Butler, the low end, the high crack in the top. That's what I love. So I'm really, I couldn't be happier. As you mentioned, I'm thrilled about it. And the other part of the thing with Freddie is that Freddie is a very positive individual. He's a good guy. He brings a lot. I do a lot of managerial duties for the band, and Freddie has been a huge part of that team now. He helps so much. We work very well together. He has my back on so many things and brings a lot of ideas. He sequenced the album, for example. David and I were going round and round about, which song should be here. And, the typical, you're an asshole. That's wrong. No, fuck you. That's supposed to be here. Oh, sorry. Can I say that? Sorry.
Yep. Yes, you can. Yes. Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, good. I didn't mean to, but good. So anyway, we would go back and forth, good naturedly, of course. But, David said, what about letting the new guy, do sequence it? That's a great idea. So Freddie, who already had his own sequence in mind, sequenced the album. We were really happy with it. So Freddie contributes in so many ways. And as far as David goes, I think I feel the same way. I think David feels the same way as I do, that having Freddie in the band, like I said, no drama, very positive, very proactive. We've not had that. Gary was not an integral part of the band. Gary didn't write songs. Gary didn't, I'm not dissing Gary. I'm just saying this is what the story was with Gary. Gary just wasn't involved. He was like, oh, if we had a gig, a lot of times I would send him gigs for something in Europe. Hey, David and I talked, we got a gig here in Europe or 2 or 3 gigs. And I would get a simple text back, not interested.
Wow.
So that was the involvement sometimes. So not that he wasn't phenomenal on stage. He and David were, like I call it, the dog and pony show that I got to watch, because those guys would be all over the stage and together. But Freddie's very positive and very, I think for David it's the same as for me. When he goes on stage, he knows he's got a solid rhythm section. Freddie's there. Freddie's, he's involved in the band. And he interacts with David on stage. Like if you didn't know the band or you just saw something before and you saw, you wouldn't notice the difference. And what's been surprising to me, again, is that the fans have been, they have embraced him without question. I think maybe I've had 2 people say something like, oh, I miss Gary. I'm like, well, when did you see Gary before? Well, I really didn't. I'm like, oh, okay. So, but I mean, it's a good thing in terms of how the fans have really embraced Freddie, and it's been a great, for me, it's been a rejuvenation that I'm really happy about. It's in this, what is really the proverbial, and I hate to ever be negative because I have a lot of things going on myself that I'm still working on projects, including my new book, which I'll be announcing shortly.
Nice.
But it's nice to be in basically I'll just use a cheesy now literary reference, in the final chapter of the band. It's always fun to be cheesy. I hear other people, I listen to them. I go, oh my God, that's so cheesy. But thank you. You're welcome. I just tossed out some Gouda for everybody.
Nice.
But it's nice to be this energized and being this prolific. David's been writing like crazy. I actually got out my guitar and bass and just recently and started writing some riffs again, because I've been basically sending lyrics. And so now I'm back to contributing ideas. Freddie contributes ideas, which is something we haven't had. So anyway, it's a great new day for the Rods, and for however long it lasts, I'm thrilled.
Hey, Carl, I woke up this morning and I was listening on
Do
Apple
I want to hear?
Music.
Wait, do I want to hear this?
Oh yeah, no, you do.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
this is good. Yeah, this is not X-rated, believe me. But woke up this morning and the new Saxon track dropped, the new Saxon album dropped, the new Judas
Hmm.
Priest song dropped, and the new Rod's album dropped. I said, okay, so this is a good metal day. It's like 7 o'clock in the
Wow.
morning. I am set for the afternoon and set for the day. So walk my dog, listen to music, listen to the latest album. Phenomenal, absolutely love it. And I want to talk about that in a second, but the clarity of the production, and I've read this on a couple of reviews, is so damn good. I just couldn't get over the clarity, like that Hammond feel, the organ, that underlay. But when you write the first track for whatever that first track for the album is, does that become the precursor of the style of the album, or do you just write songs and just bring them together kind of later on in the stage?
That's a good question, and you have a couple of points there. First point I'll address is Chris Collier. I've been looking for and wanting the rods. I always felt that we never really had justice done to our sound. We never, very seldom did we have an album that I thought, wow, when I put this on, I think, well, this captures the energy of the band. This is definitely something that represents us, more of what the band is all about on vinyl and digital recording.
Yeah.
So I started looking for people, and I started listening to a lot of products, and I started finding engineers, and ultimately Jeff Pilson pointed me to Chris Collier, who mixed the album. He mixed Brotherhood of Metal. He also mixed the 450s album, that I'm part of that band, and he mixed the Canedy album, Warrior. But Chris Collier is well known. He's highly respected. But if there's a secret weapon, it's Chris Collier. He's phenomenal, and I'm glad that people are recognizing it. That he kicks ass as an engineer, and he redid the Whitesnake along with Korn, or is it Korn? I can't remember what one of the two bands that get mixed up. It was Korn. But I mean, he's a major player, but also he redid the David Coverdale chose him to reissue his catalog.
Yeah, he did that recently. Yeah.
Pristine.
It is pristine. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's 48 minutes of intent, like 10 songs. 48 minutes is not a long album. 48 minutes for 10 songs is a long album, but there's a lot of intent on it. There's a lot of passion on it. So that's like, I just think it's a phenomenal album. I urge everybody. I can hear Dio, I can hear MANOWAR, I can hear a little bit of Judas Priest. On the second track, I was just waiting for Rob Halford to just start screaming. I was waiting for it. It's so good. Seriously, I mean, it just sounds like a Priest track. But I got to ask you, you mentioned Hell or High Water on that, and I jumped on and I can hear Man in the Silver Mountain. So that's already my favorite track on listen one. Obviously, I got to give it a couple of spins. Tell me about that track and that kind of Richie Blackmore-esque feel going on in the background.
Hell or High Water was an idea, which is, again, like I said, Freddie brings in ideas and riffs. And so Freddie, I believe, started that. Now, David and I both go back to, obviously, I was the first drummer in MANOWAR. So, and I knew Joey prior to that. So my influences are Ronnie James Dio from when it was the Elves, the Electric Elves, the Elves, Elf, and so on. So, that's my DNA. Obviously, it's David's DNA. So that stuff, doing a basic repurposing, if you will, of some of those ideas, it just comes out. That's the way it is. And, Hell or High Water was just I love that vibe. I was a huge fan of Gary Driscoll, the drummer in Rainbow, first Rainbow. And so, that's just... I've forgotten where I was going with that question.
I think it was just the overall kind of vibe, and you can just hear can hear the Dio, you can hear the Blackmore, you can hear the production, the underlying Hammond kind of groove to it, and again, I've listened to the album one time, walking the dogs, fucking around the house, whatever, just taking it in, kind of absorbing it, and that's the first track that really hit me. Second track in with waiting for Rob Halford, but definitely. Hell or High Water really struck home with me today.
I'm glad I didn't know how long I was out, but I'm glad I answered most of it before I came to.
I got it all. That's it.
Well, I mean, Carl, I'm going to go back to what you just individually you just talked about, Chris Collier. Like you said, he has been I mean, been working with so many, I mean, not so much new bands, but really what I think he does so well is working with those veteran bands to really make that classic sound modern. You know, and that's just something I think that he's really good at. And obviously you're not a stranger to yourself, obviously in the studio, being a big time producer for, decades yourself. So what is it, I mean, in terms of Chris, really that makes him so, I guess, for veterans, especially for metal veterans who've been around for decades to want to use him? Is it because he can get that modern sound, which he's obviously done on Rattle the Cage?
That's an interesting question. I was listening to a lot of music, as I said, before I blacked out, and and it was a case of I heard Last in Line, and I thought, wow, the bass sound is killer on this. Oh wait, listen to the vocals, sound amazing on this. Oh, Vinny's drums, everything's so clear, everything is so powerful. Vivian's guitar sound, killer, jumps out, and it's an iPhone. I'm thinking, holy shit, who is able to mix something that sounds heavy and loud on an iPhone? That's impossible. So that's when I started the hunt, and that was really how I really went after finding that guy. It turned out to be Chris Collier and Jeff Pilson, put me in touch. I'm sure that's a draw for everybody, and the fact that what you mentioned about taking a classic sound, which is, we're traditional metal, classic metal, but to keep it modern, which is we're interested in that as much as anybody. We're not looking to go back to the old days and, dumb it down, which I see a lot of bands love that, but, we're looking to push the envelope, at least in terms of sonically being as modern as we can be and as powerful as we can be in a recording. And Chris was that guy, and I'm sure that's the draw for everybody. But yeah, he's been able to take basically the old style traditional metal, and then add a touch that gives it a modernization that really adds that sheen on top of it. And also, it's so powerful. His mixing, he really doesn't make anything wimpy. He makes sure it's powerful, and it's, I'm a big fan. I told him yesterday, I sent him some reviews, and I was saying something to him, and I said, he was saying, oh, thanks. I go, hey, not only do we work together, but I'm a fan.
No.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's like I said, he is, whether it's modern bands or veteran bands, he is an amazing guy in the studio. And as I was just saying, you obviously have quite the studio resume yourself as a producer over the decades, working on such classic records, by bands like Anthrax, Overkill. I mean, you got them all behind you right there. I see in your room there. I mean, you could just take a look and see all those records that you've been involved with. And I always. Yeah, look at all that. Exactly. Fistful of Metal. I mean, go down the line. I always hear also that, Carl, that producing, because you obviously also produce the Rods records, that producing your own records are so much more difficult than when you do it for other bands and artists, because you can either be obviously too critical or the opposite with your own music. So, I mean, just from your experiences over the years, what's your take on that? I mean, is it easier to produce other people's music than your own? And what's the biggest difference between the two, in your opinion?
Well, David and I have been producing our own albums for the most part since the beginning. Yeah. So David and I work well together. We don't have any issues. We respect each other's ideas. So that's never an issue. Producing other people, if they're like, I produced last November, I produced a Christmas song for Adam and the Metal Hawks. And if you haven't heard Adam and the Metal Hawks, they are a fantastic young band. And so that was one of the easiest sessions I've ever done. The guys are super talented. And they listened to any direction I had. They executed everything. We did it in a day, 2 days. Recorded and mixed the song in 2 days. And we were out early, second day. So it was really fun to do, and easy. I still love producing. Sometimes when you're producing a band, everybody comes to things in their own time. So you have to sort of, if somebody isn't quite up to snuff, so you kind of direct them in a direction that maybe will help them for a little bit and buy them some time before they're up to record their parts. It's a tricky line you walk. You want to make everybody happy. You want to make it a fun experience. By the same token, you're tasked with getting a product that is commercial, accessible, and something that captures the band, but also delivers a product that people are going to respond to. So that's a little tricky sometimes. And of course, what you were saying, when it came to doing my solo album, as much as a prick as everybody who's worked with me may think I am, I was a bigger prick working with myself. It was horrible. I was the biggest asshole I'd ever worked with. Oh my God. Everything was, oh, what about this? What about that's not raw? Do that again.
Yeah.
Oh, what about this? Let's second guess the same idea 25 times. Okay, and then let's just not do it. No, you're right. Let's not do it. You're an asshole. Yes, that's right. You're an asshole too. I had nobody to fight with. I had no one to bounce ideas off. I was just like in hell, spinning around in my little brain. So, when it came to doing the second Canedy album with Warrior, that was phenomenal because it was a band. The only reason it was called Canedy was because we needed to call it something to release it, and since the band had no track record, the best thing to do was just call it Canedy to get us as much attention as we could for whatever that actually lent to the accessibility. But it was a whole different world, and they're all three of those guys had worked together. Tony, the bass player, would always come in with ideas that were fantastic, and then we fleshed them out. And the guitarist Charlie, so great, not just a shredder, but great at orchestrating parts. And so he would build layers upon layers, and then of course Mike, I call him the chameleon, and he has a new album coming out shortly with Freddie. I can't remember, Red something records, but it's really cool. But Mike is a phenomenal singer. And so working with those guys was a whole other animal from when I did my solo album. So, all different projects and all different, approaches. Sometimes you're getting in a studio with most of the people I've worked with have been wonderful. I loved working with them. Every now and then you come across somebody who's a real jerk, and you just have to flow around the rock. You do the best you can.
I got a question that, like, it started out, Carl, talking about, your album is out today in Priest and Saxon, whatever. And obviously you've mentioned, Jeff Pilson and various different musicians. So as a credible musician, with a 44-year legacy and well established in the rock and metal world, do you ever stop being a fan? And I don't mean just like, obviously you like who you like, but I mean like being immersed in the music. So Matt and I are always talking about, hey, this new album has come out, this guy's producing it, and I'm reading whatever magazines, jumping on Blabbermouth a couple of times a day. Do you ever stop being that fan? Because if I became the most famous metal musician in the world tomorrow, I could never not be a fan because it's in my DNA since 1981, and it's just who I am. Does that ever happen to you,
No.
musicians generally?
I don't know about other musicians, but no, I'm a fan. And by the way, forget the Saxon and Priest album. Those guys, they'll be around. Definitely check out the Rods album.
You're not on, so screw them, right?
That's right.
Screw Biff and Rob.
That's right. Every band for themselves. But no, I've been a fan forever, and that's that was such why my influences are what they are. And like, studying with Carmine Appice, Tony Williams, I love their music. Then when I studied with them, it was phenomenal. What I was able to learn, but I was a fan, and I'm still a huge fan of both of those drummers. But I'm a fan of a million drummers, and I get flack sometimes because I'll talk about Charlie Watts or Ringo and my drum friends who are snobby, if you will. They'll be like, "Oh, they suck." I'm like, "Really?" Because I could play a basic Ringo beat after about a day when I got my drums, and 50 years later, I still can't play it like Ringo. So okay, I get it. But no, I'm always reading and checking up what's somebody doing, what's going on. You can't help it. If you love music, you love music.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. If somebody is like, and what Matt and I do here, we just do it for fun. We just love what we do, and we don't make a dime off this. We don't want any money from this. But if somebody's watching this, and on Aftershocks TV, and then they're said, "Oh, the Rods, yeah, I know those guys," or they don't know them, whatever. Where do you send them? Like from a 1980, kickoff with rock hard right up to literally today, where do you send them to kind of catch hold of the band and then get them immersed in your music going back all those years?
No, I appreciate you saying that. The best thing to do is, and I'll set it up, a GoFundMe page for me, so you can send money directly to me, and I'll be willing to disperse it to the band, of course, but like most charities, 5% will go to the actual charity.
Wow.
Wow.
No, you can go to therods.com, and the other is the official Rods fan page, You can go there, and also Carl Canedy fan page, or David Roth Feinstein, or Freddie Villano. Any of those pages on Facebook, easy to reach us, as well as the rods.com.
Sure. And even from a musical perspective, where do you send them, say, where do they dip into your career to really get hold of who you are? Obviously, the new album is out today. I want everybody to check that out. But if somebody wanted to jump into your discography, what period do you send them? Or are they individual periods, like the start, the middle, the end? What is it? Where do they go?
Well, when we first started this, I kind of liked you. But now you're delving into this, so now I have to look at my career in decades. So thank you, making me feel really old. I think that's been the dichotomy of my whole career, which I didn't understand it until I put out Headbanger, and then doing interviews, reviewers would say, "I only knew you as a producer."
Sure.
And others would say, "Well, I only knew you as the drummer for the Rods," and so it was really hard. So eventually it melded. We were able to meld that to some degree. But even for me, there are projects that I barely remember doing that I have, and it's hard to, like, where do you go find them is a really good question. So what we're talking about doing is a Wikipedia page once my book comes out. And I'll try to compile all these albums I've been a part of, either played on, guest drummer, or produced. And so there's one place, but right now I really don't know. I guess the internet is the best place, but I hate sending people to the internet because there'll usually be some goofy picture will show up, and I'll be so embarrassed by that. And so, it's like I hesitate to go, yeah, just Google me, man. That's cool. Yeah. And then I think, oh, God, what did they just see?
Yeah, what did they do? Yeah.
But I think, I wish I had a place, and hopefully we will have something for
Sweet.
A Wikipedia. But for now, I would say Google, and YouTube is good, I just
All right.
appreciate you even trying to find any info.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
I was doing it. That's why I want to give everybody direction if they want to discover you, the Rods, your musical legacy, and that's this is about,
So
to
this,
launch bands from scratch or legacy bands like yourself.
I appreciate that, but honestly, that was a trick question, wasn't it? Because you've done the research, you know the answers, but yeah, you wanted to
Yeah.
trick me into saying
My notes
something
are right
stupid.
there. My notes are right there. So yes, you're 100% correct.
Damn.
Well, Carl, just going back to, I'm just talking about really the early days. I mean, the Rods and MANOWAR, upstate New York. You guys were really two of the bands that were really raising that flag for metal in terms of the celebratory themes of the genre when it came to the track, names and the lyrics. And that essentially really eventually kind of led into what everyone, knows now as power metal. I mean, what was it about, I guess, the two bands when it came to sort of that musical and lyrical approach to celebrating the genre that way? I mean, obviously the brotherhood of metal, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that really, when I think of that stuff, I think of the Rods, I think of MANOWAR. What do you think that kind of emanated from? Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, I knew Joey before we started working together. Joey had a vision for MANOWAR, and I have to be honest, I don't think, and maybe I didn't either. Didn't see his vision. It was a very tunnel vision, laser focused idea for MANOWAR. Laser focused. I remember when he called me and said, "We finally have the name for the band," and I was like, "Wow, so cool." But he had a vision long before. So Joey was his own guy, and I knew it was going to be huge. That kind of intelligent, focused approach was only going to lead to major success. And then, of course, working with him and seeing how things evolved when we auditioned for his name Curry from EMI, Ross's friend. But just seeing the evolution of that, being there at the genesis of that band, was clear. But I think Joey was his own person unto himself from day one. I think David, pulls his influences, and I pull my influences from all of the different bands that we loved and were fans of. Of course, David toured for a solid year with Deep Purple and a million other bands that were on bills. So his influences are there, and I just think we were, when the Rods started, I know that for us, we were very much a band, a gang. We're, it's us against the world kind of thing. And I think out of that is what came, how we wrote some of the lyrics or some of the ideas was just, it's us against the world, and we kind of celebrated it in the music.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I loved about it, and I still do, obviously, is just how much fun it was. I mean, it was so much fun that brought to metal, and I think that's something that's really kind of been missing, over the decades. Is it's become maybe the opposite. It's become more angry and hostile, and it's just that. I mean, what drew me to metal as a youngster in the '80s was it was so fun. I mean, what's your take? I mean, coming from someone who was obviously a part of bringing that fun to metal. I mean, obviously you've seen that yourself over the years. I mean, what's your I guess take on that coming from someone who played that style of fun metal that we just kind of don't see as much as we once did when the genre first started?
If I hear my friends say, "Oh, I haven't heard anything good since whatever year," and I'm like, "Wow, are you listening to the music? Like, do you listen to anything new?" So I would hesitate to say too much to address that, because sometimes it makes me feel like some of those opinions would be a little dated and coming from this old geezer, when in fact I celebrate all new music. One thing I don't love is when I see it from both sides. I see young bands that I work with or friends with, and they are into all kinds of music. They don't label it. They're just, this stuff is great. These guys kick ass. I love this. So they don't go, "Oh, that's just metalcore. That's not, that's not this or that's not that." They don't have the elitist thing. They like it all, which is in my era growing up with, like, I went to Woodstock when I was 16, and Richie Havens opens the show, and then I heard Mountain, which was life-changing for me. When I heard those riffs and Leslie West's voice, I was like, holy shit, I love this. I'm still a fan to this day, that whole sonic thing he had going. So I don't see a lot of that now. So that's one of the things that's maybe disappointing to me is not different styles of music, but the fact that the fans will sometimes be very much, oh, if it's not this, then I don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
which I find closed-minded, and I find, you're limiting yourself to great music. If the music is cool, then, and I've tried to learn from everybody and everything. And that's been my attitude is I don't care what it is as long as it's good. And if it's good and somebody's doing something that maybe I don't understand it, I try to get in the kind of the mindset of what's going on, how is this happening, and what are they doing, and I try to learn that and embrace it. And we've had this in the rods forever, which is that we have the rod saying that if it's more than 3 chords or takes longer than 5 minutes to learn, it's not a good rod song. Some of the rod's laws we have, which is comical, but to some degree it's true. But the other thing is that we have a rule that if somebody brings in an idea, you listen to that idea before you insert your ideas when you're writing a song. And the other is you must be able to execute that idea before you can insert anything or suggest anything. So if you can't play that idea and execute it well, then you really have nothing to say about it. And that's been a really good thing for us. We have a lot of respect, right? So it shows a lot of respect and restraint, because as you know, sometimes bands start and somebody will bring in a riff. Oh, wait, I got this idea too, and pretty soon, it's so watered down or it's so discouraging. You have nothing. So, I think musicians today, but I do see a lot of young bands, and I love the camaraderie from the different bands who host each other and take care of each other, especially the hardcore metal bands.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I love that, and I see it with young drummers who are phenomenal, but they love the way I play. I'm like, you smoke me as a drummer, but it's not about that. It's about what you bring to the music, and they listen to. Okay, that's his style, so that's a cool thing. Like I say about Ringo, I don't play like Ringo, but I would polish his drums any given time, because I think he's phenomenal. So there's a respect and a camaraderie with the musicians. So that I love. I just don't love some of the negative, vibe that happens because they're becoming elitist. Well, that's not musical, then I won't listen to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned something too before, Carl, about, obviously the Rods, you guys, obviously, you've toured with so many of those legendary British bands, Priest and Maiden. And when I think about when that, the Rods, when you guys came up, I mean, you were definitely one of the first American bands to sort of take that new wave of British heavy metal wing and, bring it here to the States. Now, having, you guys touring with those bands, back then, as an American band, I mean, did you feel like any, I guess, pressure to sort of do the music justice especially when you're supporting those bands, considering this was their sound, and now here you are, obviously it came over to the States here, and you were one of the first bands that were playing it and pushing it. I mean, did you guys feel like you had something to prove back then when you did that, or did you just kind of had a good time and didn't think of that stuff? Just kind of walk us through that a little bit. It
was an honor to play with some of those bands. My hope for every show was that these guys aren't so depressed from hearing how great we are that they don't even want to come out on stage. So I was always concerned for their mental health because we were on the same bill. No, I never felt that pressure. What I felt pressure for, if I felt any pressure, was, which I was so oblivious to feeling any pressure, I think, but was the fact that I wanted us to be as good as we could be. And the one thing about the Rods is when we used to joke about the fact that it's, instead of, I'm sorry, I have a contractor here who doesn't care that I'm doing an interview. Was, instead of normal bands counted off, 1, 2, 3. For the Rods, the thing was on your mark, get set, go, and meet you at the end of the song. So that was our attitude. Was like, how much energy and how much can we bring to each thing and each song and each show? And that was our thing. We just wanted the best show we could do, and we loved what we were doing, as you mentioned. We loved that. It was so much fun. It was just a great time and great energy. And so that was our big concern. So we weren't really thinking about any of the other bands. In fact, we were in awe of the other bands. Like, how can you not be in awe of Maiden or Priest?
Right.
They're just, those bands were just phenomenal. Ozzy, all those bands we got to tour with, we were just, wow. Let's finish and quick shower and get back out there to watch these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know you guys got some dates obviously lined up, Carl, in Australia, the Rods. Anything else that you got planned? Fill us in on what's what the plan is to promote Rattle the Cage.
We have dates in the works, but nothing I can announce yet other than the Australia dates.
Okay.
But there will be some dates and hopefully some European dates, but we have to see. Everything has gotten very expensive, so it's very tricky now.
Right.
Different day.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to come back to Europe, and there's been discussion with some festivals, so we'll see.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, fantastic. Well, in the meantime, everyone can go ahead and check out Rattle the Cage, The Rods. It's a brand new album out now on Massacre Records. Carl, go ahead and just, again, I know you said it earlier, but just what's the best place that the listener and viewers can go and check out the band and buy your merch and, all that good stuff and keep up with the band?
You can go to therods.com, and also you can go to Carl Canedy Facebook, David Feinstein Facebook, Freddie Villano Facebook. And also, find us on all the platforms. So, but in terms of contacting us, try one of those or the Rods fan page.
Sweet.
Fantastic. All right. Once again, the Rods, Rattle the Cage, out now. And hey, Carl, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us, man. Great new record, and good luck on the road and with the record. And hope everything goes well with it, man. Everyone,
Appreciate
go
it.
ahead and check it out. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
You got it.
All right.